Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On the Air with Tim and Ken. Ken, it's been a little while, so it's good to see you, and we got some things to go through tonight. So how you been?
Good, Tim. It's good to be back for another episode. Looking forward to catching up, and I think we got a really good show for tonight.
All right, I'm going to do a little bit of a preview before I do our infamous disclaimer. So tonight, folks, we're going to do a little bit on the footnotes. We're going to walk you through that pretty quickly, and then strap yourself in. Ken's going to lead us through. He looks sober to me, but we'll hear the argument. You're going to hear some big numbers, some fascinating stories tonight. Remember, you heard it here tonight first, so it's going to be a lot of fun, a little bit different. But we're gonna walk you through it and have some fun. So we appreciate everyone for watching. We appreciate the feedback. I know, Ken, you've had some feedback too.
Yeah, it's great. We really do appreciate everybody that watches. We've had a lot of fun doing it. So we do really appreciate people taking the time. We do want to wish one of our subscribers, Bill in Naples, a happy birthday. We're a couple days late from filming, but we know he's watching, and we always appreciate his feedback as well. And
happy birthday, Bill. All right. So disclaimer tonight, usual folks, as we always say, this is just for fun. Don't rely on what we're telling you. We try to give you accurate information. Some of it's our opinion. So don't react to it in a business-like manner or anything like that. And this is just for fun. But more importantly, I'm going to get talk about a lawsuit that is real and ongoing. So especially on that piece, it's not my opinion. Everything's alleged. So, but I'm gonna walk you through that a little bit. So sit back, enjoy, and we'll get started with some footnotes. So jumping into the Bitcoin thing, Ken, I don't know how you're doing, but before I get into the story, it revolves around Bitcoin and sports, and those two have intersected. So how are you doing with your Bitcoin these days?
I have tried to understand that. I still don't understand it, so I stay out of it.
All right, I have also. So I'm not involved in Bitcoin. Full disclosure there, but I'm going to read some of the notes here to get it accurate. There's a class action lawsuit going on, folks, out of the state of Florida. It involves huge amounts of money. Basically, everyone's heard of the FTX Bitcoin thing that went down, and the gentleman that went to jail for fraud and so forth. A lot of victims, a lot of real people lost a lot of money in that for a lot of reasons. But what's going on with this class action lawsuit is a lot of sports celebrities who invested in it somehow or got involved in it, promoting it. They've been named in this lawsuit. I'm going to read just so I get it accurate. The celebrity athletes and teams have been accused of both to the perpetration of the fraud and to the sale of unregistered securities in a vital way without disclosure of the amount and form of payment received. Basically, I looked at the lawsuit. It's a mountain of paperwork. Basically, the lawsuit has 14 counts in it, alleging billions of dollars of losses. And again, there are victims here, so I'm not making any light of this. And what they're alleging as part of the counts were that these celebrities were involved in perpetuating a fraud. Well, that apparently, allegedly did not happen. The judge agreed, and he threw out all the counts of that claim. So I'm not alleging any fraud and any celebrities or anything. They didn't know what was going on. And the judge threw out that part of the claim. There are 2 counts still out there, though, on this claim. So the court case is still ongoing. It's a real thing. And again, there are real victims out there, so it's near and dear to them. You have celebrities like Tom Brady, his former wife. You have Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal reportedly has settled as far as his claim goes. So some celebrities and sports folks have settled their claim. And just to get away from it. So it's run deep, a lot of money involved. The Florida judge did rule that the plaintiffs failed to prove that the celebrities knew about FTX and CEO Sam Bankman-Fried's misconduct when endorsing the platform. So the celebrities and sports folks did some PR work, some ads, promoted the product supposedly. Again, they had no idea there was a fraud going on. The judge agreed throughout those claims. This is what's in front of the court now. It seems to be narrowed down. This is the crux of it. According to
Sounds like they'll be a lot better educated going forward on these kinds of things, you know.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Where the agent's going to look at this, celebrity's going to ask again, why am I involved in this? I'm just, doing a celebrity thing or a spokesperson thing, and all of a sudden I got lawyers out here and I'm getting sued for not, billions of dollars in a federal district court. Not a pleasant, and there's real victims. Not a pleasant experience to be in. So they will be looking at that going forward when they do their endorsements. And I think this is where it will come down. According to federal securities law, those who advertise a security must fully disclose the nature, scope, and amount of compensation received for advertising or be in violation of anti-touting regulations. So basically, the lawsuit in a nutshell that's remaining indicates that the celebrities, those that were paid for their services, didn't disclose that they were being compensated, or if they were, how they were being compensated. So the other question about that really is cryptocurrency a security? That's going through Congress now. That's another whole tangled web. So this thing has a long way to go on it. It's a terrible thing. There are real victims. But when we talk about sports and business, I just wanted to bring that up because there's another whole world going on there. So as Ken alluded, these celebrities and sports folks are going to look at these endorsements, and their agents will a lot closer because of what's going on. So I'll keep you updated at the end. We'll see what happens, but that's what's going on with that. I know it's a little bit dry. It's not our normal fun stuff, but I just wanted to get it out there because it is real news.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the long run, and people are losing money, and
yeah,
everybody loses money, but you want to lose it for the right,
right.
right reason, not the fraud involved. And so,
yeah,
and so, I know we speak a lot about valuations. Going on to our next topic, and Tim, you and I watched the elections hand in one, and we referred to it heavily last week, where he said, invest in sports and women's sports. And this past week we saw another piece by a guy by the name of Gerry Cardinale, Cardinale, and he did. It's a 35-minute piece. He's a part owner of Redbird Capital, and I think you and I both thought it was fascinating. He had a little bit of a different approach where he didn't really want to be a limited partner. He
right.
wanted to be a seat at the table, be involved in decision making. So it's just a different perspective than the one that we saw a week ago. So if you have the time and the interest, I would go look for that. It was really, it gets a little in depth.
Yes.
But he does cover a lot, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, he's been involved from the interview. Gerry's been involved in what he looks at sports as a business. Doesn't just look at it as, hey, this is a fun thing to do. I'm a wealthy guy. I want to have some fun. He's been involved with this stuff for 20 plus years. So, and he's involved with the Yes Network and other networks and a lot of things. But he always ties to it, the monetization of it and the valuation. And like Ken said, he thinks right now some of these valuations, he thinks they may have gotten a little bit ahead of themselves. He's not saying that they're not going to catch up to that valuation, but when you monetize where you go with the streaming services, the TV, the live thing, the stadium, he says it's not, in his view, it's not quite in sync yet. So he's taken a little bit of a pause. He's got his hands on the pulse. He's got a lot involved going on here. And he's also heavily involved with the United Football League. He talked about that. You can tie that into what you talked about with the WNBA. It's time of year.
It's the UFL. They think that there's a position for year-round football. I'm not sure I agree. It's not something, I haven't watched any of the UFL games, and we haven't even mentioned it in all the things that we've covered in our podcast. But he thinks that there's a big market out there for it. Time will always tell in these kinds of sports decisions. They either succeed or they don't. And what I liked about him was this guy was, he was at, he always said he wants a seat at the table, and he's involved in these discussions and decisions. He's not just showing up with a check and saying, all right, go do what you do. It was like a 35-minute long segment.
Yeah.
If you're into that, business kind of value stuff, you'll really find it interesting.
Yeah, he's certainly an expert. He's very involved in all of it. He's got a long history with it. And like you said, this isn't like the old school, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, where you had wealthy people or wealthy families who own sports teams. He goes, these are $1 billion deals. So you got to run them like a corporation. You got to know your numbers. You got to run it. You got to figure this stuff out. It's not just, hey, I think I want to own a team. It's no longer just that. It might be some of that for the minority ownership, but like Ken said, he wants to be a decision maker. He wants to be involved in the strategy. He wants a seat at the table. Therefore, he wants a majority share, primarily in what he's involved in. So it's a fascinating. It seems to be exploding everywhere with these sports. The money, the timing, streaming, where it's all going, and the monetization of it. So if you have a little time, it's well worth watching the interview. It ties in exactly with what we enjoy talking about quite a bit. And I don't get to sit at those seats. I don't get a seat at that table. Okay, so in any event, maybe someday we'll get invited in, but so far we have no one's getting back to us on that. But I agree with you, Ken.
To serve them water or something, like
right. I agree with you, Ken. I personally don't think I'm going to be watching football to that magnitude year round, but he did say he saw it as more than just a farm team for the NFL. We'll see how it plays out. I like the fact that there's a lot of money going into it. That means that people believe in the sport going forward. I like those sports, so it's good for me. It's good for everybody that likes sports. So there's it's not going away soon. So that's all I really care about.
So I heard you had an interest in a marathon in Maine.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Weekend.
Yeah, it's a good segue because we did this. This one doesn't involve much money, and this is more of a local or a regional story. Up in Bangor, Maine, they had a marathon a week or so ago. Of course, it's end of May. The weather up there pretty lousy, kind of cold, chilly, rainy. But the story is this: the race director started the race. I guess they had it years ago, and it didn't last. And some race directors got a marathon started again, I think last year. They've done a wonderful job with it. So the marathon is actually sanctioned now, which means through some sort of rate, if you qualify, have a good race time, you can then qualify for the big ones, the New York, the Boston, Chicago. So it's a good regional way to make that next step. Go to Bangor. I guess the track is certified for that. And what I found really interesting was the gentleman that won it, young gentleman from the Boston area. His name's Dan White, and Dan won the race. And I'm told, I checked this out, I was told that it was his best personal time ever. So he ran his best race, and he won. And I think he got a small prize, and now he's qualified to run in the other races. And that's only part of the story. Dan's in the healthcare profession. During the day, he puts people's bodies and lives back together, and then he finds time to train and run. And so my hat's off to Bangor, the race directors. And it's a great story. You got 300 people up there that ran. They worked hard all winter to train. And, I don't know them, but, they worked hard. So that I like that regional story. It doesn't really involve the big money we've been talking about. But it's got a real human interest to it and a real sports theme to it. So congratulations. Yeah. So we keep it all grounded. And those are the things that are really important. So congratulations to Dan on his great victory, and all the folks up in Bangor and those that participated. I hope it grows. I hope the race grows to 1,000 people next week. So next year. So hopefully it will, and keep going. So kind of a nice story. All right, everyone, strap yourselves in. We got Ken. He's ready to rock and roll. He's been talking to me for a little bit, and I've checked his blood alcohol level. He seems sober.
I'm sober.
All right. So he's got a great, interesting topic to talk about. So I'm going to let him tee it up.
Look at sports off season is probably, from a fan's point of view, one of the best times of the year. You speculate what your team's going to do next, who are we going to draft, who are we going to trade. It's the basis for like sports talk radio and all the rumors and the mock drafts and everything. And we're back to a topic we talked about previously. Decision day is coming, June 29th. LeBron James has to decide what he's going to do. And he signed a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
He's got 3 options. One, he can do nothing and play the second year for $52 million. He can elect out, re-sign with the Lakers at a lesser amount to give them some cap room, or opt out completely and become an unrestricted free agent. Now,
and you've got a thought on this now. You're
I
going to pick
haven't seen
one.
one report that he's going to become an unrestricted free agent, but that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to
Yep.
talk about what that would look like. And I'm not a Knick fan. I grew up a Larry Bird fan and a Celtic fan, but I'm going to make the case that he should opt out and come to the Knicks. The
That that's
time is right.
that's a big decision. Walk us through how he's going to forego 52 million. He's playing for the
Yeah,
Lakers.
he's going to have to make some sacrifices on this. He's going to have to give up the 52 million. It looks like the Knicks, if they bring back their roster in its entirety, which is what you would want if you're going to come here, because they just, got knocked out in the Eastern Conference Finals, that he may have to play for 8 million and change.
Now, most people go to New York to make some money, right? That's a big reason people go to
He
New York.
he would make a lot of money just coming to New York. And look, we realize that he may love LA. He's playing with his son. He may hate New York, all the above, right? But we're going to base this on that he's got an open mind. The Knicks haven't won in 52 years. They're starving for an NBA title. And they just got to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
They just are one player away. And, to play your home games in Madison Square Garden, in the Mecca, New York City, it would be the biggest story in sports. The NBA would dominate the headlines for the next 12 months. His jerseys would be off. You wouldn't be able to keep them in stock.
And
Every
nobody's
game
ever
would be
won
prime time.
four. No one's ever won four with different teams. The four championships on four different teams.
Nobody's ever won. You wouldn't. Yeah, he's won three.
Yeah,
with three different teams as Robert Horry. Nobody's ever won four with four different teams. He said after the season that if he didn't get to the NBA Finals or win, the season, wasn't a success. Well, they've been knocked out, the Lakers, 4 out of the last 5 years in the first round.
Yeah.
The Knicks are a lot closer to going to the NBA Finals. They would need him. Plus, the Knicks just fired their coach.
Right. That was shocking.
A 3-year, $30 million extension that hasn't even started yet.
After a great season.
After a great season. And we know NBA stars, like to have a voice of who that coach is. And this would give him that opportunity. I mean, if you want to look at what, I've grown up in the New York area, and to compare it to something would be the 1994 Rangers. Okay. The 1994 Rangers had won in 54 years. And Mark Messier came to town. He had won 5 Stanley Cups with Edmonton. He wins the Stanley Cup in 1994 with the Rangers. It's all anybody's going to remember Mark Messier being. He's forever going to be remembered for the Ranger captain. He's going to be, he's referred to as the Messiah here. He put, the Islander fans used to chant 1940 at the Ranger fans because it was so long since the Rangers had won.
Right.
And
right.
It's just going to be there very well could be an easier path through the East. I mean, the Celtics are a shell of them for themselves right now with Tatum out for the year. They're probably going to try to move, Brown or Christian Porzingis.
Yep.
Milwaukee may be looking to move Giannis. Philly can't keep, Joel Embiid on the court. Oklahoma City, which is starting tonight for the NBA Finals, it seemed to be the dominant team in the West. The West seems to be a lot deeper. This just may be an easier path. And if he's willing to take the salary sacrifice, which he could make up with in endorsements, give him a hand in the coach. This all could work out.
So you think that even if if he's making 52 million with the Lakers, if he plays plays next year, if he were to forego that and, have to get roughly 10 or 15 million or whatever, or slightly less, whatever it was, dramatically less, you think
absolutely
he'd be obviously he's a great player. Is he the greatest? Is he 1A, 2, 3? I don't know, but this could put him right there, if especially on twofold, both players' performance and monetarily from the other items you're suggesting.
Well, I think he's already monetarily, right, the richest. between him and Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
This is back to the Tom Brady, Joe Montana. It's Michael Jordan and LeBron.
Yeah.
I think when Brady won the Tampa Bay Super Bowl without Belichick, you kind of heard the end of the Joe Montana stuff. And I think that this very well could be something similar for LeBron. Jordan went 6-0. The people that grew up watching Jordan, I mean, he was an assassin. I mean, he broke everybody's heart if you weren't rooting for him.
Yeah.
And if LeBron were to win in New York, something that hasn't been done in so long, and we'll get into a list of what has come up since the Knicks won in '73. It would be such a humongous story.
Right.
Nobody would care about the NFL. Nobody care about Major League Baseball for the next 12 months. The story for the next 12 months would be LeBron and the Knicks.
Yeah.
And where can I go watch him play? Where can I buy his jersey? And if you want, you want to see what a New York City ticket tape parade looks like. There's a fascinating ESPN documentary called 6/17/94. And part of that documentary is the Rangers ticket tape parade after they won after 54 years. And it's insane. It really is. They had one in '86 for the Mets when they won the World Series. John Carlin, who I lived with in college, we went. He was one of our suite mates. Him and I went. He lived in Queens. We left Quinnipiac. We went down. It's an insane celebration, one like no other.
And what did you tell me
You know,
before we went on tonight that Spike Lee was about 8 years old when, Spike's a huge Knick fan, right?
right. So since 1973, since the Knicks
He was eight
last
years old when
won,
they last won.
he was 16 years
Or
old.
16, I'm sorry.
Okay. The first cell phone call was in 1973, even though you couldn't buy a cell phone until 1983. So Microsoft founded 1975. Microsoft wasn't even around the last
Right.
time the Knicks
Right.
won. Apple, 1976.
Yeah. I looked it up.
Secretariat won by 31 lengths. Right?
Gas was 39 cents a gallon. Yeah. It's been a long time.
The original Star Wars, 1977.
Wow.
Ben Stiller was 8 years old. It's been so long, since they have won.
So
We've
anybody
died.
effectively under the age of 60 is not going to remember that win. I
They're
mean,
not going to remember it.
think about that.
And it's even unclear whether it was on live TV back then, because back then, until I think it was '82, and the games were consistently on live TV. The games being on live TV were spotty based on what else? Because it wasn't a big ratings draw, the NBA back then. It wasn't a big ratings draw until Bird and Magic
Yep.
became in the league. So the NBA finals were often getting bumped for other shows because if they thought the show was going to have a better, then the reason they moved the NBA finals to June was because Sweep Weeks was in May, and they didn't want the NBA finals used to be in May. They didn't want to show them because they got no ratings, so they moved them to June to watch it.
Wow.
And
Well, it's a league of superstars, and like you said, he's a legacy player, and he can control his destiny. And for some odd reason, the Knicks fired their coach, which I don't know. Who knows? There's a lot of speculation there, but it I guess anything's possible. It's fun to talk about and speculate on it.
look, there's no indication. I'm not going to sit here and mislead you to think there's any indication that he's considering this. But
Right.
this
Right.
is what sports. This is what you talk about, right? At a bar,
Sure.
you're hanging out with your buddies, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense in so many ways that he's joining a team. He would be joining a team that is that close,
Yeah.
and he could come in. They would hand him the keys to the city.
Yeah.
He could pick the coach.
That window of opportunity is only right now. It'll never be again.
I think it would put him number one. You and I saw Jordan. I thought he was the best of all time. But if LeBron were to come here and do what hadn't been done, it would be hard to argue. It would really. I'd watch every game. I'm not even a Knicks fan, but I'd watch every game. I'd be sucked into the story, and I think it would be such a great sports story.
It would be LeBron 24/7.
It would be LeBron 24/7. Yeah, it would be fascinating.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if the New York Knicks are winning the NBA title. Is it really a mission impossible or is it possible?
There you go.
We hope LeBron accepts the mission,
There you go.
and
I
comes
hope
to
he's
New York.
listening. I hope he's
Hope he's
listening.
listening. Oh, and by the way, Tom Cruise was 11 the last time the Knicks won the NBA title.
So he has a vague memory, maybe, of it if he was a
He has
basketball.
a big,
Yeah,
yeah.
very
If he
good.
watched it on tape delay.
Very good. Well, I'm getting the checkered flag. I guess that means we got to wrap things up here for another episode. So I want to, Ken, good job on that. It's a great thing to talk about. We, like you said, you have no idea. I certainly don't.
No,
But
it's fun to talk about.
fun
It's,
to talk about. But that's what sport. That's half of what sports is all about. Is speculating and doing all that. So we just wanted to get that out there and enjoy the NBA finals. And we got the U.S. Open coming up in golf, and the Belmont Stakes is this weekend. And you get into summer season, so there's a lot going on still. So,
but we thank everybody for your time. We appreciate you, joining us.
yep, and we appreciate your feedback. So we'll see you again next week. Enjoy the NBA finals, and we'll wait to hear from LeBron. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, have a good night. Take care.